In this example, I have a list of companies that I know will always begin in cell B3, but the list might extend at a later time. I want to add an index in column A, and instead of typing a number, I want it to be a letter. To do this, we're first going to have to loop through the list of companies, and then we're going to have to add a value in the column A. We start out by making a counter variable, which will just be byte because it's not going to be very big. And since right now I make sure that my list always begins in row 3, I'll start out by saying that the counter should be 3. Then I make a do while loop, which means this loop is going to keep going as long as a condition is met. And once that condition is broken, the loop will end. So the loop is going to keep going as long as the value in column B and the counter variable, that is the row, as long as that is different from nothing. So as long as there is a value. And then before we forget, you always start by ending the loop. Then we're going to take the code I copied from this website called Delft Stack, and we're going to change that a little bit. So we'll say that I want to change the value in column A and the row counter. I want to change that to be the split function, which I'll get into in a moment. Then I want to say take the column, which is equal to my counter minus 2, because my value starts in row 3 and I want this to be number 1 so that 1 gets converted into A. Then I add the dot address function where we say comma 0, which removes the dollar signs, because right now we'll get a fixed reference using the dollar signs, and removing them will make it a little easier to extract the letter. Then we add the delimiter, which is a colon, because we're going to get the whole column A, which will be A colon A, and we just need to get what's to the left. We could also use the left function to get the first letter, but maybe you have a lot of columns to add, and then you might end up with a column AB. The split function will give us an array, so we're going to say I want the first item in the array, which is actually item 0, to get everything to the left of the colon. And then before we forget, we have to make sure that the counter variable increases by 1, so we don't get stuck in an infinite loop. And now we can run it by hitting F5. So what happens here is that this part, columns counter to address, that is going to give us the entire A column. If we use the dot address function without the comma 0, we're going to get the dollar symbols.